Okay, awesome. Great to be here. Let's see. Oh, too fast. Okay, cool, awesome. Before I begin, I want to give a big thanks to the EDCON team, the organizing team, everyone who's participating in this event. I know it's not easy to organize events like this, and so I applaud you all. Thank you. Thank you. Big round of applause for everyone who's organizing the event, this team. It's great. Yeah, like my friend mentioned, so a little bit about me. I'm Skylar. I work with the Ethereum Foundation. Specifically, I work on the DevCon team. So DevCon is the Ethereum Developers Conference that the Ethereum Foundation puts on. Last year it happened in Bogota, and the next one will be next year in Southeast Asia in a yet-to-be-announced location towards the end of next year. So hope to see you all there, or if not there, our team also leads the event called DevConnect, which is a week of Ethereum events, independent Ethereum events, all focused around specific topics, so like MEV Day, Layer 2 days, things like that will happen this year in Istanbul. Who here is from Istanbul? Anyone? Okay, got a few hands. In November of 2023. So hope to see you all at DevConnect and or DevCon, and hopefully both. But today we're not going to talk about events. We're going to talk about, the title of my talk is If It's Broken, Fix It. This is a departure from my normal talks around like proof of stake, first proof of work, and roll-ups and things like that, to something a little bit more, I don't know, high level. I think it's relevant to anyone in this room who is a terrestrial being living in society, or who's a digital nomad, visiting or living in foreign countries, or who is working on the future of autonomous worlds or virtual worlds or digital reality or things like that. Quick poll of hands. How many of us here work remotely? How many work remotely? So quite a few of us. Quite a few of us work remotely. Many of us nomad around to different countries, staying for a month or more in places. Some of us have moved to foreign countries where they're cheaper, maybe, from where you're originally from. And some of us work remotely while living in a lower cost of living country and are earning higher than average salaries for your region. I think this is actually like a big benefit of crypto. I think the big benefit is that it's a remote first industry. It is, and I think it is the first truly worldwide industry. What's an important part of hiring people? It's paying them. And until crypto, paying internationally was a nightmare. And so now with crypto, we have one big benefit, which is the ability to move to maybe to regions where cost of living is lower, your salary is considered high, or vice versa. A bigger benefit in my mind is locals in regions where cost of living is lower can now get jobs remotely from companies based in other places that pay higher than their average salary. In both cases, what's happening is more money is moving out of regions that might have more money into regions that have less money. And I think this is a leveling of the playing field globally, and I think it's one big benefit that crypto can bring to the world. But is it all roses and sunshine, I ask, because some might disagree. So Kami here is my friend, also in the crypto space, and this tweet came out just less than a month ago. It said, Colombians in Medellin are increasingly getting priced out of their own city as a result of digital nomads moving here and staying long term. Everything is too expensive. Digital nomads, temporary colonizers, gentrifiers go home. It says a lot of foreigners are staying here long term because it's cheap if you're converting USD, but it's destroying the local economy. Undoubtedly, tourism is good for the country, but when it turns to foreigners taking apartments and houses from locals, that's where it becomes bad. So how can we coordinate wealth redistribution from foreigners to locals when they visit the country? And I would say, what's the problem here? The problem here is foreigners, our digital nomads are entering a country that's become nicer because of the people there, and they're increasing the value that's being brought into that country. And in turn, what's happening is rents are rising, prices are rising. And so what's the proposed solution? Well, one solution she mentions here, which I saw elsewhere in the thread, is I think the solution is foreigners should stay in hotels when they visit. The key problem is they're driving up housing costs because foreigners are renting, incentivizing Airbnbs that take housing away from locals. Other proposals are that we should limit foreign investments into these regions. We should limit foreign presence into these regions. We should just not allow digital nomads to stay longer in certain places. And in my opinion, both options are worse. In these cases, these digital nomads are bringing foreign money into the country, and that's arguably a good thing. internet and crypto in combination, in many ways, levels the playing field globally, allowing people who are in a certain region to work remotely and receive a salary that's higher than average is arguably leveling this playing field globally. So what's the problem? The problem here is that rents are rising because these values are increasing, right? And the cafes, the restaurants, the services that exist in these areas like Medellin, but all over the world, they receive some of the money. But who do all of them have to pay at the end of the day? All of them at the end of the day have to pay landlords. And so with more money coming in, rents are rising. The landlords say, oh, you make more money? Well, that's great. Now you can pay more rent. And what option do you have? You don't have much because more wealth is flowing in all around that region, and higher rents, landlords all around the region can start to charge higher rents. So here we have a situation where the people, the society, are the ones making the city nicer. They're making it safer, they're making nice restaurants, they're creating nice shops, they're paying taxes which contribute to a good metro, cleaner air, nice parks. The people in the society are the ones that are making this region nicer, but ultimately, they don't reap the wealth. They don't reap the benefit from the society, increasing in value. Who reaps the wealth? The landlords do. And so what's the problem here is, I would argue and many others, the problem is land speculation. So here's a quote from a sign that was created a long time ago. It says, everybody works but the vacant lot. I paid $3,600 for this lot, and I will hold till I get $6,000. The profit is unearned increment made possible by the presence of this community and enterprise of its people. I take the profit without earning it. For the remedy, read Henry George. And so the problem here, argued by many, is that the problem is really land speculation. If we think about land, no one person created land. No one person is making its value increase. In the case of land, many times nature created it and made its value, created its value. So it's either land located next to a beach, it's land on a hill with a good view, it's land sitting on lots of oil, rich with natural resources, or in other cases, society made this land increase in value. Society created nice restaurants, society paid the taxes for the metro that made that land nicer, society pays for the police force, local artisans have come to this area and made it more enjoyable to live there, created public parks, etc. So like this land, this $2.5 million empty lot in San Francisco, this is not valuable because the landowner did anything with this lot. It's an empty lot. Why is this land valuable? It's valuable because of everything that exists around that land. Everything that exists that the society has created around that plot of land. But the landlord gets to reap all of that benefit by owning this land. And so we live in a world where one type of person benefits, it's the landlord. And so here we enter an economic theory called Georgism. Georgism basically states that land speculation is near the roots of inequality, near the root of the cause of inequality. The root flaw is essentially that you can buy an empty piece of land, say this nice piece of land in this downtown made-up city by Midjourney, and you can do nothing but wait for society to make that land more valuable. In the future, you sell that land for more, thanks to nothing you did, rather stealing the wealth generated by society, or in other words, enslaving society to work for you. And so here we have land speculation. Like, that's the incentivization to buy an empty plot of land, hold it, do nothing, wait for society to make it more valuable, and then sell later on. So you have, and you have extra money. Why would you spend that money improving the land, like building housing to meet the demand, so that housing prices lower around the world, when you can go buy another piece of land and hold it for longer to make even more money? So this is the flaw with land speculation and the argument why it's the root cause of a lot of inequality. So what's the solution? The solution, many Georgists argue, is a land value tax. So there's two parts of property. Here, the land value tax differentiates land assets from improvements to that land. So you have the raw land and you have improvements to that land. Improvements to that land can be things like houses, like apartment complexes, like hotels, or like this conference center or gymnasium that we're sitting in today. Those are all improvements to the land, as would be like mining the oil or farming a piece of land. And a land value tax is different than property tax. Property taxes tax both land and improvements. So property tax actually are perversely, they punish you for building stuff, for improving the land, for creating more housing, and they reward you for keeping the land vacant. So in many ways, property tax have perverse incentives to incentivize more empty lots around the world rather than creating and improving land so that can be used. And so land value tax basically is a heavily tax on squatting on the land. With land value tax, you are 100% the owner of the improvements that you do on top of that land, which won't be taxed, which incentivizes the more productive use of the land. It incentivizes using it productively to build things like housing. And so some of you might be sitting here saying like, oh, taxes, gross. But wait, this tax is a little bit different. It's a little bit more unique. So many proponents of this also argue that this tax should be distributed in the form of UBI back to all of its constituents. And so this kind of helps close the loop of the value creation cycle. So society, the people in this world are the ones making land more valuable. They're the ones increasing the values of these lands. And instead of the landowner reaping all of the benefit of that, instead of landowners reaping the increased value, this value is then taxed and then redistributed back to society in the form of a UBI. So it's quite an interesting concept. And this tax is also unique in some other forms. So the first one is, with this tax, there would be no deadweight loss. So deadweight loss, when you're talking about taxes, is basically the concept, if you want less of something, tax it. So in the case of, let's say, cigarette taxes, like when the government taxes cigarettes, what happens is that the cigarettes producers end up having to produce, some marginal producer of cigarettes ends up being unprofitable, and then there's less cigarettes that are created, and therefore the prices increase. And so you end up getting less taxes on, you end up getting less cigarette sales. Same with sales tax. If you increase sales tax, you get less sales. Same with income tax or labor tax, you end up getting less labor. But in all those cases, the supply of this asset is fluctuating. You can change the supply of labor, you can change the supply of cigarettes, but with land, you can't change the supply of land. Land is fixed. And so when you tax land value, you don't get less land, you don't get less demand, you get less land speculation. So this is one of the arguments for this tax, is that there's no deadweight loss with implementing a land value tax. There's also incentivization of more efficient use of land. So we want land value taxes to cause it to be cheap to buy and use land, but expensive to squat and not use the land. If we remember back to the issue with Medellin, the rising rents was an issue blamed on the nomads. But now nomads can visit the city, spend their money, increase the value of the land, increase the values all around, and the benefit, instead of being robbed by the landlord, gets redistributed in the form of UBI to the society. And the landlords who create things on top of their lands, like apartment buildings and Airbnbs, should indeed be rewarded for that, and they would be in this system. Another thing you get is you get goodbye NIMBYism, hello YIMBYism. So NIMBYism is not in my backyard, and YIMBYism is yes in my backyard. In many cases today, if you own a house and they're going to expand a highway behind your house, you're incentivized to say, please don't do that, not in my backyard. That's going to decrease the value of my land. But in this new system with the land value tax, you might say, okay, you can increase the width of that highway, it will decrease the value of my land, but that's also going to decrease the value of my land value tax, and so I end up paying less in land value tax, and I end up saying yes in my backyard. So there are some interesting benefits with this, unique aspects of this particular tax. But you might be asking, what does this have to do with crypto? Like, why are we talking about this here? I'd say, for one, we're all terrestrial beings living in society, and so I think we all hope that the future looks better than the past, and I think this is one way in which we can get there. More specifically, a lot of us are nomads. Are we really benefiting local economies by nomading to various regions? We are, after all, bringing wealth from other regions, right? Well, I would say the reality is, like, although we have a small impact on local businesses, in the long run, the ones who really reap the benefits of our presence and increased economic activity are the, you guessed it, landlords. I don't think we should stop long-term nomading, like some people suggest. I don't think we should stop the hiring of remote workers across the world. Locals being able to work remotely and increasing their salary is good. But I do think that if we really want our digital nomading to bringing of foreign wealth into new regions, to help those in the local society who really deserve it, and not just enrich the landlords more, we need to encourage more policies that incorporate land value tax around the world. But many argue that this would be really hard. This is maybe too late in the real world to do. Many landlords feel like they have the ownership, they have the right to keep extracting this value in land value. So, and while I agree it would be hard, I do not think it's impossible. I think it's something that we can help support, and increasing the knowledge around this theory is, I think, one part of it. But if it's broken in the real world, at least we can fix it in virtual worlds. And so like I mentioned in the beginning, I'm a big believer that in the future, virtual worlds, autonomous worlds, digital reality, metaverse, whatever you want to call it, will become ever more important in our world. And so as we're creating these new worlds, which we are at, and we have the opportunity right now to avoid making the same mistakes that are real in our real world. So one such topic is autonomous worlds. It's one definition here is a world is a container for entities and coherent enough internal rule sets about how they behave. When a system of entities and rules comes to life, it becomes a world. There's this group called 0x Park that's working on autonomous worlds and helping making it easier to create them on top of Ethereum. And if you want to scan that QR code, that'll bring you to check that out, which I think is really cool. But with virtual worlds, we have something super unique. We have, for one, the opportunity to recreate things from scratch. So we can start from the beginning. And that's super powerful. And two, we have a lot of new abilities and opportunities. In the physical world, a policymaker who would implement land value tax is more like a politician or a bureaucrat. They can only do so much. But in the digital world, a game designer is more like a god. They have complete control over everything in that system. And you can start creating things. Yeah, you have a lot more power. And so I ask, I guess, though, is this the direction we're heading in? Are we actually going to make these digital worlds better than the real life? And so this is a quote from Paul Enya, many of us follow, just earlier this month. He says, "We have plenty of metaverse projects in crypto offering virtual real estate for sales. The problem is they are missing storytelling and culture. What gives virtual land value is narrative, collective lore, customizability, etc., targeted at crypto native people." So I disagree. I think the problem these projects are heading for is if they don't implement land value tax or something adjacent to some of these theories, then they're going to run into a housing crisis, a virtual housing crisis. And here in the game of life, real life, we don't really have much of an option to participate or not, but in virtual life, in virtual games, we have an option to participate. And if you're participants, if game players enter the game, and it's unfair for people who have entered late because people who entered early already bought up all of the land, have already speculated on all the land, then it's not fun to play, and people end up not playing your game. And so I think that I think we're risking not heading down the right direction with virtual reality and gaming and metaverse, and that this is something we should consider. Here's another article, like buying on Fifth Avenue back in the 1800s. Executives behind the huge metaverse land deals say swelling valuations reflect big plans for the virtual space. I think these swelling valuations are going to reflect a big housing crisis in the future, a big land crisis in the future, and a game that's not fun to play long term. And so I think these people should reconsider this game and at least consider implementing something along the lines of land value tax and other things. So I think another important thing to mention is that this applies to more than just digital land. So you're creating a game, you're playing a game, you might not think you have digital land in there, but you might have assets that are very land-like. So for instance, land, it might be in Final Fantasy, land is the example. In Star Wars Galaxies, dungeons is actually the most land-like. And in EVE Online, spaceships are the most land-like. And there might be instances where it's not even a game, where these things actually apply to digital assets that aren't necessarily a part of a game per se. So ENS, Ethereum name service, like your Skylar.eth or name.eth, if you squint hard enough, digital domain names have many similar characteristics to property. And actually, if you have read Vitalik's proposal to ENS from September of 2022, so just last year, there were many references to land value tax. Another interesting opportunity might be AI. AI, after all, right, is created from common knowledge. Should one entity be able to reap the benefits of an internet of information created by society? Could Georgism or land value taxes or something adjacent to be used for inspiration to redistribute this value back to society? Maybe. So this slide here is just to illustrate that there are solutions for assessing land value tax. Things like more of the interesting things, maybe like some of the crypto folks here are more aware of, are like Harburger taxes or modified Harburger taxes, or in games specifically, blood taxes are quite interesting. And if you really want to dive deep, there's an article here that's super useful that I'll share again at the end. But the message here, basically, in our digital world, we have a lot more opportunity for identifying land value tax and having people pay that. And at the end here, I want to just highlight the takeaways. So why is rent so damn high? Why is it so high in Medellin? It's not because of the digital nomads, and we shouldn't limit the digital nomads and the foreign investment and the leveling of the playing field worldwide. The problem is land speculation. We should learn about land value tax. We should learn about Georgism. And if not implemented exactly how specified there, I think there's a lot we can learn. And lastly, virtual housing crises are possible and likely unless we plan ahead. So as we're building the future of our virtual worlds, we should think about land speculation and the negative externalities that come from that. And so if you're building autonomous worlds or games, you should research more about land value taxes and Georgism, and here are some good resources. So the top is a book review by Lars Doucet, which inspired this talk a lot, and you can scan that QR code to read that book review. And the second article is on game design with land value tax. There's also a podcast in there with Vitalik and Lars Doucet. And the third one is a link to autonomous worlds if you want to learn more about autonomous worlds. And if you want these slides, just shoot me a DM on Twitter. I'm Skylar_ETH. And yeah, at the end, I think we here are a very future-focused crowd. We believe the future can be better than the past. But we're only going to get there if we, I think land value taxes and Georgism, if not directly applied, are very relevant in both the creation of future physical worlds and future digital worlds. So hopefully this was informative, and hopefully some of you go on to research a little bit more about this and share this in your communities. And my time's up, so thank you all.